up, gamers? So today on Dice and Dragons, we are beginning our journey through time as we are going to be reviewing T.I.M.E Stories, published by Asmodee and Space Cowboys, designed by Manuel Rozoy. I'm not sure. If you do happen to watch the video, Manuel, please correct me on how to pronounce your name properly. And with that being said, I'm going to toss it over to Julie, who will tell you more about the game itself.
So it's a cooperative game that's plays in about 90 minutes per session. It's a 2 to 4 player game for ages 12 and above.
Yeah, and one thing to mention is that on Board Game Geek, it does say that the game plays best at 4 players. And we've been playing it at 2. When you play at 2, you do have to control multiple characters. There are rules for 3, but I would say 2 or 4 is definitely the way to go. And now just to talk about the sessions. And this is actually a good segue to talk about T.I.M.E Stories itself. So what are you doing in the game? Well, you start off at your base, you get a mission, and then you're going to go on your mission, and all the missions are different. The mission that is included in T.I.M.E Stories is called Asylum. And when you run through the mission, if you happen to die, which is most often the case, or you cannot solve the scenario on your first run, you are then going to put everything back in the box if you've decided to stop your play or stop your session, and then you're going to go back to your base and you're going to restart. Now, some information is going to be carrying over, other information you're going to have to go and obtain again, as well as items. So it will really depend on the scenario. Now, how would you describe the game, Julie? What would you call this type of game? I think I have an idea, but I'm not quite sure. It kind of falls a little outside of the box compared to other things we've played.
I don't have all the technical names that you call it. It's basically, I see it as a mystery quest where you're basically trying to, solve some clues in order to reach your objective.
You mean find some clues to solve your objective?
No, I think you have to solve clues in this one.
Yeah, you know what? I actually can go with that. I would say it's more of a narrative adventure game. There is some combat, and how the game plays, well, you've got a map. You've got different rooms. You will move upon around the map. You're going to enter a room. You will explore the room by moving your character pawns, or your receptacles as they're called in this case. And then you're going to read the room card. Now, you're not supposed to reveal the information to other players. You're just supposed to tell them a summary. And if you happen to face a challenge, you will then set up the challenge below. Now, you'll see a little bit of this in our How to Play. I'm going to try to do it without giving you guys any spoilers. And I do want to make it nice, quick, and succinct. Otherwise, we might ruin the story for you. With that being said, Julie, what time is it?
Well, it's time to grab our drinks.
And grab our best friend.
Take it to the table.
We're definitely taking this to the table.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, we'll see what people think about it. Well, this will be the first of our series in T.I.M.E Stories. I wonder if we'll actually get to the end of the entire thing or if we stop partway through.
We'll see, I guess, huh?
Yep. Now we're going to take a quick look at the components for T.I.M E Stories. I apologize that the rule book is a little bit cut off, but we don't really need that anyway. And I wanted the best close-up shot I could get. Now, we've got the game board here. I'm not going to open it up. We are going to be teaching you how to set up the game. We're now going to take a look at the cards, the components of the case Asylum. There are 2 cards here. This is just sort of the backers for the card packs. You don't need them, but it does tell you what case you're playing. Now, Asylum comes with 8 characters, and as the game is designed to be played over multiple runs, when you do fail, because you will most likely in the first run, you can pick a different character. Now, when you take a look at the other side, you will find the values that you'll be needing depending on the scenario. These do not remain the same. What does remain the same is the defense, so defending against the skulls. We'll talk about that when we get into challenges, and your health. In this case, you've got fight, glibness, and I believe this is for searching, but I can't remember what the symbol is. It does change during every game, and we recently played the Marcy case. Now you get the 4 plan cards. These make up the map that you're going to be moving around and the different locations that you're going to be moving to. And to do that, you're going to be using this nice just your group meeple. Well, since we talked about some of the locations, I'm going to pick up the whole stack because I don't really want to reveal any spoilers. You have the location rooms. Now, what you're going to start with is the day room here. And you notice that it's lettered A, B, C, D, E, F. There are spaces on the board for it. So there's the day room. You'll take a quick look at it. There's other rooms like the infirmary and some other secret locations. Not going to spoil it, but as you can see, there are a lot of location cards. Now, one thing that I do want to mention, as this is going to be the first in a video about Time Stories, we're not going to be showcasing the components for the expansions, as they are all just packs of cards. Now, the game will always start out with your base, and it'll look a little different every time, but you can just get an idea of what you're going to get when you set up the base. There's also the reference card here up. So just going back to the symbol that I saw with search, it's deftness or agility, the ability to steal things. Now you're going to want to keep that reference card handy while you play. And as you noticed on the reference card, there were some resource tokens that had defined values. That's why you have these 4 different colors. They are generic. Depending on the case, they will have different meaning. These are your life tokens. They are always the same. And now we'll just take a look at the rest of these meeples and the die that we have here. What we have is the time unit die, which you're going to be rolling as you move from location to location. We've got the challenge die, where a skull is a negative and can potentially deal damage to your receptacle. And then you've got the successes, which are either 2 or 1. And as you can see there, it's not that easy to roll successes. Then we've got your characters, basically your receptacles that you're going to be placing on the game board and moving around. Now these ones are just designed to go, on top of your character, just to mark which receptacle is which, since we don't have any meeples or standees. Now let's take a look at the rest of the tokens, and then we'll just take a quick look at the rule book. Now these tokens are going to be discovered while you play or be something that you need to unlock. And depending on what you need to do with them, and there are a lot of them by the way, this is just a small sample size, they're either going to go on the board or you will then be able to reveal a card. And when they go on the board, there's something you carry over that makes the game a little easier. Well, not easier, but you figured something out. Here we've got the challenge shields. These ones right here represent losing TU. These are scenario specific. We haven't run across them yet. These ones mean that as long as there are and they're left, that you lose 1 health. So with regards to the TU ones here, if you're not able to defeat these shields, the party loses 1 TU. Don't worry, we'll talk about that more in the how to play. Then we've got the dual-sided ones, which are either the skull, the dangerous challenges, or the regular challenges. And then just a little bit of a spoiler, you do have some special bonuses you can acquire depending on how you do in the run. Now, we've got +3 TU, but I don't want to showcase the other ones. I just want to give you guys a hint about what you can get. And then lastly, we've got the rule book, which is definitely very thematic, well put together. I love the artwork in it. It does explain the game fairly well. The one thing that it doesn't have is sort of a quick reference guide, which is a little annoying. I think they should have done something on the back, but overall, it does what it needs to do. Now, with that being said, we've covered all the components for Time Stories. So now we're going to take you through the setup and then quickly teach you guys how to play the game. So keep it right here, and we'll be back hopefully a lot faster than Marty McFly, because it took him a long time to resolve that problem he caused. Now we're going to set up Time Stories. And this is going to be a 2-part setup. There's a reason for that, and you'll see in just a moment. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take out the base cards and the location cards. We're going to stack all the location cards here, and we set up the base along the letters. You'll notice that at the bottom of the cards, and I'll pick one of them up so you can see it a little bit better, they are all lettered. So we've got A through G, and the setup card is F, so I'll pick up F. As you can see, base F. Now the reason why this is a 2-part setup is because now we've done the first setup. We are ready to go to start playing the game. Each player will take a turn reading one of the base cards. Then once you get to base card F, as you can see, it'll give you the final preparations and tell us to start setting up the game. I'm just going to put this down. We're going to take a look at the item cards, which I didn't show in a lot of detail in the components, but as you can see, they're numbered 1 all the way through 30 for easy reference, and to let you sort them so they don't get mixed up. You place those out on the board. You have the mission successful and mission failed. So depending on why you fail, you'll draw the proper card. And then we've got the icon reference card, which I'm just going to place on Codex 3. Now, depending on the scenario, they may be used. In the Marcy case, they were all used. In Asylum, these codexes were not used. We then have the plan cards, and we need to build the plan of where we're going. We've got it set up. The instruction is to place the group location marker in the day room, as so. And then we need to place the TU starting marker on 25, and we have now set everything up. When you get to card G, it'll tell you to pick your receptacles. Now, I'm just going to take a random 4. Remember, this is designed to be a 4-player game, so 2 players, 2 characters. There is a version for 3, but I'm not sure how it works. You can see sort of their different psychosis because we are going into an insane asylum. And you will see different effects related to that down here. But in terms of the how to play, not really worried about it. I'm just going to take the top 4 and I'm going to set them up as so. I'm trying to get everything on camera for you. So we'll set them up like this. You can see everything. Hopefully nothing's really off camera. A little tricky here, but we'll get it done. There we go. And now we've set up the second part of the game just about. We need to close up the base, keep the cards in order. Makes life easier, but the image really does help. Hard to place them out of order. Move those. We then take the day room. Don't want to go into the infirmary. That's some other cards. We then set it up as so. We then need to place our receptacles wherever we'd like to place them. Now they can start in the same location, but that's not necessarily advantageous. We'll talk about that in the how to play. So spread them out. It's definitely what you want to do when you start. But in other scenarios, grouping together or having everyone in the same location may be required. You then also want to make sure that you take your other meeples just to label the characters. Kind of got a little spot up here that works, so I'm going to label her as green. She will be yellow. Felix will be pink. And Vasil will be purple. So there you have it. We have now set up T.I.M.E Stories. What we're going to do now is teach you how to play. We're going to show you how you interact with the cards, talk about challenges and show you a little bit of challenges, and then give you an idea a little more as to what these things are. So keep it right here, and we'll be back in a flash. And I said that because those of you that watch The Flash know it's a time travel show in many respects. Now, how do you play T.I.M.E Stories? Well, we're going to go through the sort of basics as you're moving around the board. Now, once you enter a location, you are allowed to place your characters, your receptacles, wherever you want that doesn't cost any TU. If you do, well, let's just straighten that up, want to move, well then the leader, and the leader will rotate. The leader is the person, in this case is the person that ended up closing the base and opening this up, will decide on the actions. And to do anything such as moving to another location, partaking in a challenge will cost you 1 TU, meaning at that point you would move up the track. But interacting with these cards costs nothing. What you then do is you pick up the card, you read it, and it's not really a spoiler. You can take a look right here, sort of just get a quick look. And you tell your team the summary. You don't reveal it to everyone. You're supposed to keep some of that information to yourself. And one thing I just forgot to mention is when you start, the time leader will read this card, which tells you about the day room. So that'll be the first step. Then each player will look at their cards, read them quickly. You'll discuss stuff as a group. And there you go. Now what I'm just going to do is reveal this just to show you guys. As you can see, you will take item 24 and 22, meaning we will go into the item deck and take the 2 items. I know it's a little bit of a spoiler, but kind of hard to teach the game when everything is a spoiler. Now you'll take them, and those belong to your the respective receptacles, meaning you want to place them like under their card as such. I know you can't really see it, but just make sure that they stick with the right characters. I'm just going to put those aside because they're not really relevant to the game right now. And what we're now going to talk about is challenges. Actually, sorry. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. What I want to do is just finish up with this. So we're at 25 TU. We've investigated everything about this place roughly. If we do want to figure out what's more here, the time leader could say, and imagine that their character is Madeline. They would decide to move here, spend 1 TU, and then they will read it. Now at this point, other players can move or they can choose to do nothing. You really want to make sure you spend your TU wisely. Once you get down to 0, you draw a mission failed card. And to find the mission successful card, well, you got to solve the mystery of the asylum. Now when it comes to moving to another location, you will then roll the die. You advance by the amount of TU, and you can move to any other location that is on the board. For example, you go to the dormitory, you would close down the day room, as so. Actually, I'm going to change my location as the infirmary is right here. So we'll just say we went to the infirmary. And then set up the infirmary as such. But we'll put the day room back on top. And we are now in another location. During the travel, we pick up all of our receptacles and we are just able to decide where we want them to go. And I actually set that up incorrectly, sorry. Just looked down and realized that. There we go, it's done properly. And we can spread them out. Then once again, each player will read their card. Now, if you happen to get into a challenge on one of these cards, what you're going to do is find out what the challenge is. So we'll just imagine it's here. I'm not telling you guys if there is or not. I'm just going to take a look. All right. There was a challenge. What you then do is you follow the instructions at the bottom of the card. You will then take whatever it is, the amount of shields. So let's say it's 2 skulls and 2 regular. Skulls you're only really going to see in a combat one, but the challenges go the same way. In Asylum, we didn't really encounter the ones that make you spend 1 TU if there's a shield left, or ones that will cost you a health point if it's still out there. And then there's these special ones, which as you can see, are not currently in this game. Also, when you see a challenge, you might see the lock token, meaning you're not able to leave that location. What you then do, depending on what the challenge is, you will consult your card. Could be a fight of 2, glibness of 1, deftness of agility, and you look at what your character has. In this case, we said it was combat. I'm actually going to move stuff around if we're rolling combat die just for a better example. It's combat, we got the boxer. We will take our 3 dice, and we're going to roll the die. I did not set up the life tokens for the characters. It would just make everything a little busy, but actually we'll do that now, at least for Felix, just because he's getting into combat. We'll roll the die, and we'll see what happens. Now in this case, that is an absolutely terrible roll, because I've essentially rolled 5 skulls, meaning I've triggered the riposte, so I add the number of skulls, shields that are here to this, minus my defense, and that's what I would take in terms of damage. So for this combat challenge, 5 minus 3 means I would have taken 2 damage. Now, that's just an example of how you would overcome the challenge. Let's roll it again. In this case, what would happen, we deal 2 damage. You always start with the regular shields first, whatever's on this spot. Don't worry, it's marked at the bottom of the cards to go across these 3 locations. So we defeat those 2. We trigger a riposte of 3. Our defense is 3. We would take no damage. And that's how you would be working on combat challenges. Now let's say if they were a regular challenge, you might just be rolling 2 regular dice. You don't have to worry about the riposte. In this case, you would just get 2 successes. And that's how you deal with challenges. Like everything else that you do in these areas, that costs you TU. If it costs you multiple rolls on a challenge, that'll be multiple TU. So for example, just to beat this one would cost 2 TU. That fight, the way it was going, would also have cost potentially 2 TU. Now, moving is a TU, as we've stated. Interacting with the card if there's a challenge is also a TU, and that can all happen at the same time, depending on where your receptacles are. So in that case, for example, we found this challenge. Vasil did it. Madeline wants to come help him out in case he gets a garbage roll next time. During that same TU, she can move. For example, during the combat, Mademoiselle Doom could have moved to help out, and then they would be able to participate when you spend the next TU, for example. Now, one thing that we don't have here, there are locations that can be marked in red. They will cost you extra TU when you're trying to move from them, not to them, from them. Consult the rule book. The information is all there. Essentially, that's what you're going to be doing in the game. You're going to be reading the information, getting items, talking about it as a group, and facing challenges. So we've really covered most of the how to play. The one thing I do want to talk about are these icons. Potentially, as you're going through the game, you're going to discover these icons. And if it tells you to place them here on the board, they then carry over to your next run, meaning you've got some information, you're able to actually accomplish things without having to go back. So they are very valuable. Whenever you can gain them, go ahead and try to do that. They may also just be, and I'm going to take a quick look through the deck here, see if I can find something that's not overly spoilerific. They may also be required for a location, as you can see. To reveal this card at location 14, you guys don't know what it is, you need all 3 of those symbols to have been acquired. All right, and that is how you play Time Stories. So I'm going to flash into the future, and we're going to come at you guys with our review of the game. Now, before we get into the review for Time Stories, I just want to break down how this is going to go. First of all, we have played the first 2 scenarios, Asylum, which comes in the box, as well as the Marcy case. We decided to play both scenarios so that we were able to actually talk more about Time Stories. After just playing Asylum, I don't think we felt we had a good enough grasp on the system itself to review it. What you're going to be getting in this video is the review of the base game and also a review of Asylum, because we'll talk about the Time Story system, but each scenario very much sort of stands on their own in terms of how you play. Each designer, as you'll find out, the Marcy case is a different designer, has their own little flavors and their own particularities when it comes to how you're able to play within the system itself. With that being said, I'm going to stop blathering on, and I'm going to let Julie tell you what she thought about the game.
So I've been asking you about this game for a while. It's been on the shelf for a little while, and kept seeing it and kept asking about it. And a friend of mine on Facebook posted that she'd been playing with her friends, so I was curious. That plus, I do love my time traveling themes. I read books about it. I've been watching Travelers on TV,
which is kind of funny because consciousness back in time, which is exactly what happens in Time Stories. But this game is from 2015, so I don't know if they're related or not.
Don't know. So anyways, I can say I did like the sleek look of the box and the production value of the game.
And the art is very nice. I just
the art is scary, honestly. In this one for me, it is weird, man.
You're talking about with regards to Asylum?
With regards to Asylum, the production value of the game itself, I like the whiteboard. I like we have some nice dice, the wooden pegs that represent our characters. I like that very much.
The round meeples. Technically, they're called meeples, but they don't really look like meeples because they're not really people. They're more like round pegs, as you say.
They're round pegs. Call them what you want to call them. The production value is nice of the game, and the way the cards are done. I will say in Asylum, it's weird for me. It's the people look like zombies.
Well, just so people know, Asylum is because you're in an insane asylum. So the people do look a little insane, and everyone has that sort of, how will I put it? It's almost like a Les Miserables sort of. And sort of that type of aesthetic, but then gone a little bit freaky and more on the horror side. But if you want to think about it, it's sort of that aesthetic, but then taken to a very creepy place.
Yes, taken to a very creepy place. And in any case,
I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name, but it's something McGee. He did a video game, Alice in Wonderland. I wish I could remember his name, but it's very much in that style. For those of you that have played the game or know what I'm talking about, you'll get the gist of it.
So we can only talk about how this went at 2 players. I don't think you have the experience with 4 players.
No, and I don't think we're going to get the experience with 4. This is really going to be just us playing. And I don't think the experience is going to be that much different at 4 players. I think it would just be a little easier, not necessarily easier, but easier to manage because you know which receptacle's yours and where you're going and how the items are laid out. So there'd be a little bit more smoothness. But I don't think there's a big difference. It's just more interaction, more player interaction. Yeah.
So that being said, this game.
Are you talking about Asylum or are you talking about T.I.M.E Stories itself? I think we should just split up both of them.
Okay, well, the idea of T.I.M E Stories I like. I mean, I like the idea of trying to solve a mystery by picking up different clues and being able to figure it out. I think we played. What did we play recently? It's reminding me of something that we just played that had all kinds of clues in it. Can't even remember the name of the game now. In any case, I'm thinking about.
Oh, you're thinking Chronicles of Crime.
Chronicles of Crime. I'm like, I can remember it now. I'm going to talk to you about that coaster that didn't look like a coaster. So in this case, the poker chip. Yeah. In this case, the clues you don't really know are clues either. I mean, it's not out there. You pick up people, you pick up elements, but you don't know if they're going to be useful or not. And in some cases, as you're trying to figure stuff out, you hit roadblocks, is all I'm going to say, not to spoil anything for anybody. I think for me, one of the, and I'm going to separate Asylum from the Marcy cases.
We'll talk about the Marcy case entirely separately, since it's really its own thing. We're talking about.
But I like the idea of the game and moving around and figuring things out. That being said, this particular version, Asylum, frustrated me to no end. There is a mechanic in this version that you have to keep coming back to the same room. You have to start in the same room. And what you learn, you don't learn in some cases.
So just to clarify for everyone, when you die and you fail, and the game is designed that you're going to have to do multiple runs, you always start in the same room. And I think we're both agreed here, and I'll mention it now because I think it's one of my major drawbacks is the multiple run system in the game, the way that Asylum is designed, feels very tedious. The only way I think it is a lot of fun is if you fail a run, you box up the game, you remember where you are, you've got your notes, and you pick it back up another day. If you're trying to complete it all in one sitting, it is tedious, and I really didn't like it.
Yeah. So on the point of making notes, yes, you can to a certain degree take notes. However, I found with this particular one, you can't learn. I mean, and I think that's what's different. I think if you're going to go back and you're going to return to your receptacle and you're going to try it again, you'd remember certain things. You don't just start from scratch again. And this game assumes that you have to go through scenarios again and pick things up, pick clues up, and not just make your way through to reach your objective. And I'm trying to be clear without giving away too much of the game. But basically, I wish that things that you learned that you don't need to relive, you could keep with you in the sense of being able to continue the game with the knowledge that you already know what happens in certain places.
Yeah. So the time story system does require you to do multiple runs. And one of the reasons why we played the Marcy case was to see how it felt. The Marcy case was a lot less
we'll talk
tedious in terms of multiple runs. And we did that because we wanted to talk about the system. Now, doing multiple runs in time stories is not necessarily a bad thing, but how each case presents it is, so far we've only played 2, I think can be like make it or break it. And as Julie was saying, the fact that there are certain clues that to obtain all of them while you're playing the game, to do it in 1 or 2 runs, which is what the game would like, not 1 run. The game really wants you to strive to complete it in 2 runs, would be very, very difficult. And taking notes is key. And to be honest with you, the fact that some of the stuff doesn't transfer over when the game was made in 2015, as Julie said, the receptacles should be able to remember. I mean, you know what? You could probably just take a picture of the thing with your camera and, like, you'd be able to remember it. But there was definitely, that was a big drawback to me in Asylum. There were things that really should have carried over that would have helped the flow of the game, specifically more for people that are trying to play in, one day, one case, not trying to play a 90-minute session, being like, oh, well, we'll pick it up again in a few days. I think it would have been less tedious, but,
I think it probably would have been very different if, as you suggest, after playing it once, we boxed it up and picked it up 3 weeks later. Because then you remember some things, but you don't remember it as clearly. And I think that was my biggest frustration with this version of it, is that you still remember what you just did. And basically, if it is like the game suggests and your receptacle comes back to HQ and they say, okay, go back, you need to try this again, you technically wouldn't be forgetting everything, right?
Yeah, there was clear clues that should have carried over that did not, and it was just a pain in the butt. And the way that everything kind of works out, I would have to say that with regards to Asylum, well, it's not the most difficult of riddles and challenges, but they're not self-evident, and in overall, I did not find it very fun. And I think one of the reasons why we're being so negative about Asylum and the way the game is that because this is a game was designed in 2015, and I think it was probably very cool and interesting in 2015, but the design feels very dated now in only a couple of years. I mean, they're ending everything now. It's 2019, but these cases, a lot of the stuff came out, 2016, 2017. There was games that we've played that came out, a couple of years earlier that far surpassed this game in terms of the way it delivers the storytelling and how it succeeds with regards to using the mechanics. The rerunning of stuff is not done very fluidly, and it's very clunky, and it means you're going to be doing a lot of stuff again. And from someone that plays video games, and I've replayed a fair bit of my games, but there are certain ways that certain aspects of video games that will allow me to replay it, such as that new game plus system or carrying something over where I'm able to start with more information. With regards to what you get in Asylum, it's really only your map of the scenario that you get to carry over, and I think that is one of the biggest weaknesses of the scenario, and it's very frustrating and made playing it through in one sitting not fun. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add.
I think we've harped on it enough. I would say you're going to want to tune in to check out the Marcy case because I think we have a different
we definitely have a different take on the case, but let's talk about the time story system. I think we've covered Asylum. How did you feel about the system, sort of the rerunning of things, the way that some things can carry over, and the fact that, everything is really different. Each case is entirely, is a new experience.
Well,
the tokens and everything gets reused in an entirely different manner.
I like that. I mean, I like the dice rolling as well. I mean, it does add a little bit of a luck component, and sometimes you're rolling well, sometimes we're not rolling very well. But I like that aspect. I think the time moves in strange ways for certain things. But I do like the fact that, you have to make decisions that make time take a little longer. I don't like it, but I, I like the added complexity of the fact that when you make noise, so when you're doing battle,
Oh, you're talking about the Marcy case there. There was none of that in Asylum.
oh, see, I see what happens when you get confused. So that's something that I felt was good. We'll talk about it in the next one, I guess.
Well, you're mainly talking about like the TU, the way the time units work, and the fact that that adds pressure in terms, especially in terms of what you're trying to get with your final score.
Yeah, I mean, and again, you may correct me, maybe in the other one, there were times where things happen to you that make time move forward despite your best intentions.
It happened in this one as well. I think one thing that we both liked is those getting the nice like little like your pink square, your blue square, actually unlocking stuff in that will then carry over to your next game. And while we did see some great examples of that later on, we'll talk about it when we get to the Marcy case. I don't think Asylum did that very well either. I think that would have been a great way to carry on more information.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that really frustrated me with Asylum is that there was a lot of dead ends that you're trying to investigate, and you spend a lot of time only to you think, okay, you're spending the time, but you're gonna get somewhere, only to not get anywhere.
Yeah. So spoiler warning. That's gonna be my one light spoiler. Crazy guy in the yard. For those of you that are playing it or haven't played it yet, don't even bother. 110% waste of time. Waste a lot of time. Far too much time for something that should be fun and a little goofy. I don't mind things like that are small roadblocks, but when it wastes a significant amount of time to the point where it could screw up an entire run, that's just poor design, in my opinion.
And we had another situation like that as well, which we'll let be. But it took us 4 runs to get the first one?
3 runs. It was on our 3rd run that we.
I think we, by that point, to be very honest, I think we ignored something in order to continue it.
Because we were frustrated. We were still playing through it, and what we thought would be a 2 to 3 hour game was getting a little long in the tooth.
Yeah. So, I mean, I like the system. I like the dice roll. I like the fact that, I'm not sure I love the idea that you're rolling a dice to see how much time is progressing between things, because that, to me, adds a little bit too much
randomness.
I mean,
for something that's going for a specific score. And I agree with that.
So everything else I've liked, that rolling that dice to see if it's taking you 1, 2, or 3 time units to move between locations. I didn't like that randomness. I would have preferred saying, if you have a location that's far away, if you want to go to that particular location, that's going to be 3, and you have to make that decision.
Well, they have that mechanic as well, but I know what you mean with regards to rolling the dice, because, to be honest, it pretty much always comes up to, they could have definitely standardized it and got rid of that whole aspect of the game. Yeah. It's just a little bit of randomness, and you're hoping for a little bit of luck, but I mean, there's one roll where it's 1, there's only one side that's 3, so basically you've got almost an 80% chance that it's 2, just make it 2. In any case, I think we've harped enough about some of the flaws in the design of not just Asylum, but T.I.M.E Stories itself. So, Julie, what are you going to rate T.I.M e Stories? And then give your rating for Asylum right afterwards.
I think T.I.M e Stories, the game system, I'd rate a 7. But Asylum probably rates, honestly, a 5.5 for me.
Well, this is one of the few times where you're actually being kinder to a game than I am. I'm going to give Asylum a solid 5. It's clunky, it's dated, and just from my experience playing games, it feels like it would have been dated almost already when it came out in 2015, or by 2016, the way that it was designed was very dated. T.I.M e Stories system itself, I'm giving it a 6. I don't know how well it's going to hold up over multiple different scenarios. If every scenario is going to really be as tedious as Asylum, or we're going to get some that flowed a lot better, like a little bit of a spoiler, the Marcy case did. So I don't know. The fact that it can go one way or the other, I can't really give this game like a solid pass. Now, is it going to be fun? Is it a cool narrative experience? Yeah, but it's really almost a play and be done after you've played the scenarios. You're not going to want to touch it again, or at least that scenario, for a few years probably, or even, maybe not a few years, but at least a year. So there's that little bit of replayability, that aspect, that I'm going to knock it down to a A 6. I don't know. We'll see. We've got Prophecy of Dragons, and we'll continue on, and you'll probably see some reviews of Time Stories expansions on the channel to the point where maybe one of them makes us go, "That's it, we're done," and you might even see a re-review of Time Stories. But for right now, I'd say the game is very much just okay. And there are some cool interlinked story aspects that you can find. I believe it's on www.thetimeagency.net. Something that I really wish would be in the game and not an outside online resource that you have to go find. I know I asked Julie if she was interested in it. She goes, if I got to go read it, and it's not just a book you can pass me, it's not as interesting.
So now's the time to remind you that you can like, comment, subscribe. You can also find some video links. Eventually, not the first time we have this, but eventually there'll be links to other reviews for other Time Stories.
Yep. And then we're going to get out of here fairly soon, and we're going to move right on to the Marcy case and give you guys that content shortly following the release of the review of Time Stories. So what's it time to do, Julie?
Yeah, grab our drinks.
Grab our drinks. Grab our best friend.
I'd say we'd keep playing games. I think now we're just going to keep on reviewing.
Keep on reviewing, yeah, or keep moving through time.
Yeah, that was lame.
I know it was lame, but it's Time Stories. It's all right. We'll leave it there. See you in the next review.